Look at this, guys. 5 across on the screen. How about that? This is a special drive time with Matty Ice. But everyone, welcome to the show. This is going to be a fun one. I've been looking forward to this all day long. So we've got a few people on with us today to end up eventually talking hockey, of course, and talking about something that happened yesterday. I don't know what it could be. Who knows what we could be all here talking about. But anyway, welcome. Let's see. It looks like Vic is next to me before, and you guys are familiar with Vic. He's been co-host with me now a couple times. Let's see. Next to him is Scooter, or as we Scott Rivette, from my fantasy league from our enterprise days. I think you were on one of the Tuesday night Joe the Fan segments with the guys once before too, right, Scott? Weren't you?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, you got that right.
That's what I thought too. And then below me and over here is the one and only Jeff Nail, also in my fantasy league, also ex-enterprise guy, and just a downright good fellow. He's here with us as well. Jeff, how you doing? I said Vic. You're the first one.
You said I was a good fellow, though.
Well, yeah, this is Jeff's first time on the show. I got to schmooze him up so he wants to come on again. So.
I get it.
And it's part of my contract.
That's right. It's part of the contract. That's what I had to do to beg him to come on today. So he's giving up a gym session for this today, guys. So like I had to work hard to get him on here for this. And then over next to Jeff, but not last, not least, is of course my daughter Sarah. Showtime Sarah has, as the guys gave her the tune. She's on here for a young hockey fan's perspective, So
I'm the favorite anyways from you guys, so.
Well, probably so, yeah. But yeah. So anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome to the panel. I'm glad that you guys are joining me today. This is going to be a fun one. But of course, as I always start with, what am I wearing? And I had to pull it back out. I think I've worn it before. But I mean, when a guy breaks the all-time scoring record, you deserve to wear his jersey. So with that, I am wearing, of course, the Washington Capitals jersey, the one that I own. And to me, it's still the best. I still love this jersey. I don't mind the red. I'm glad that they went back to the red, but I always love the Capital logo being on there. That this is my favorite one. It still even has the old eagle, the old eagle logo there. So this is an old school Capitals jersey that I own. So Vic, what are you wearing? You want to share?
Okay, all the time.
See, there it is.
Stadium series.
Oh yeah, that's a solid. I did like that Stadium series jersey. Although I do admit the one in Columbus this year I think was a little bit better, but that's okay. Scott, now I know you're going to share what you're wearing. Maybe.
Yeah. First of all, if you know me, you know that I want to burn Vic's shirt, but that's fine. You're cool. You're cool with me. But to even go old school, WHA. This is for Gordie Howe, baby. Mark and Marty.
That's right. Old school Hartford Whalers, the New England Whalers.
Yeah, that's one, New England.
That's right.
First Avco Cup champions too, by the way.
Oh, Scott's always going to be our Hartford trivia extraordinaire for the show. That's for sure. Jeff, anything you want to share? Or
no, I'm not wearing anything special. I'm still going to the gym, so I'm wearing my gym clothes.
Sure, but you do have Ovie in the background behind you, so we can count that as what you're wearing. So.
I do. I got a little wet, but I'm good.
Sarah, you're just going old school traditional here. It looks like, right?
I took a power nap, so I went straight into pajamas. I have a tie-dye shirt on and tie-dye pants on.
There's nothing wrong with the pajama look. I got no problem with that. So. All right. So with that being said, it is time to go into the rearview mirror. And before we get into what we're all, of course, here for, which is going to be some Ovie talk, there was some other stuff that actually did happen in the world of sports today. So, but even before I start with that, now, if you missed yesterday's show, the guys did a little fun little segment with the Gentleman Jack, and he rated his sideline junkies, and he rated me his favorite sideline junkies. So a shout out to Gentleman Jack for that. I appreciate it. I think it's just mostly because I don't give him a hard time like everyone else. But hey, someone votes me number one in a poll, I'm just going to be happy with that, right? That's a good day in my view.
Hear you on that one, number one all the time.
That's right. So, all right, now to some real sports news. Vlad Guerrero signed his deal. I think it was earlier this morning or today. It could have even been late last night, but he signs his deal to stay in Toronto. 14 years, $500 million should mean that he stays at Toronto Blue Jay. I'm glad to see that they got this done for the man. He deserves the deal. He deserves to stay in Toronto. They were fishing around with other guys, and I'm just glad to see that they signed him up on this deal. Let's see. We'll start with Vic. Vic, you got anything on it that you want to add?
That's a lot of dough. He deserves it, though. That's all I'll say. He's a good hitter. So I'm happy for him. He deserves it.
Agree. Scott, anything?
Yeah, his father made $130 million totally, so he's killing his dad.
Right?
So,
I know it's
Sarah,
crazy to think about that. Yeah, Sarah, you better start making more money than me here. I'm expecting that too. That's a good idea. I like that.
My Bojangles money?
Yeah, whatever. No. Hopefully something beyond Bojangles. So, Jeff, you got anything?
Just
Vlad.
that, yeah, just that. I think it's good that Toronto is keeping one of their stars. As you said, they've been in the market for others in the past few years. Have always seemed to be kind of the check number, like, hey, here's a number to use in negotiation, but we're never really in on any of the big guys.
Right.
So it would have been devastating to that franchise to lose him. So I'm glad.
Agree. I think Toronto's got, and I still think they could be the surprise team in the East this year. I still think it's, Baltimore is the favorite, probably with the Yankees and the Red Sox. But Toronto's got a fun little lineup if they can get that pitching staff figured out, and now they don't have to worry about this coming up. When you get to the trading deadline of does he stay or does he go. So. Ben with a couple of quick comments. He's coming on mine that I was number one because he put him in dead. Jack put him in dead last. So he says, forget that old man. So having a little bit of fun with that. So, all right, let's get now into the world of college basketball. And man, did the UConn Huskies just come out and dominate on their way to this victory. Shout out to them. They get the revenge after losing to South Carolina in 2022. It is UConn's 12th title overall. They just dominated this game against South Carolina, and you don't see a team, a South Carolina team get dominated like that in a game. And it just was really from the start to finish. They defeated 3 number 1 seeds. They won every game by 10 points. Paige Buchers comes out and just, she's clearly going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Just was an amazing show. So Scott, I'll start off with you because I know you are all things Connecticut. How are you feeling about the UConn Lady Huskies winning another title?
Well, what's it been, a few years since they won, like 6 years or something like that? But I mean,
Yep.
It's just typical up there. It's crazy how big UConn basketball. I mean, I haven't been to Connecticut in about 15 years, but it's amazing how huge it is. Like, we used to see the players, when I was at University of Hartford, they would always kick our butts anyways. But I mean, it's just unbelievable what Gino Auriemma has done with that. He's arguably the greatest college basketball coach of all time. It doesn't matter men or women. So.
Agree with that. Gino is something, but I mean, both those coaches are great, and I love both of them. And I think this is going to help even get that South Carolina UConn rivalry going more, because that loss is not going to sit well with South Carolina, and that's going to be some motivation for them, I think, over the next couple of years. And we'll see. UConn's just they're going to be there next year for sure. So, Vic, you got anything?
There are going to be 2 more. There's going to be 2 more UConn shout-outs for me later today in 2 different parts of today. So.
I would expect nothing less, to be honest, Scott. I'd be disappointed if there weren't UConn shout-outs. So, Vic, you got anything?
All I got to say is I think Paige Buchers should get just as much credit and as Caitlin Clark did, as much coverage and that kind of stuff. Positive.
I think that's going to be interesting. Well, of course, the whole thing will be, because the WNBA, they still got to get their contract figured out. So, I we'll see when that happens. Hopefully they don't miss time. I think it'd be kind of a bad move for the WNBA with all the public publicity they got going forward right now. That's all positive. They got to get that deal signed. They can't miss games. So I hope they get it figured out.
Didn't Buchers have similar stats as Clark, or
I think so, but I'd have to pull them at least this year, maybe. I think for sure. I think, but Paige had all the injuries early on too. So I mean, the overall stats are going to be, in favor of Caitlin, but I think that they're pretty close. But yeah, I kind of agree with that for sure. Jeff, Sarah, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I've got something anecdotally to add. At where I work, I'm kind of the gray beard of the group, and I work with a bunch of guys. It's a bunch of bros, if you will. And I, of course, was crowing in our team's chat about Ovie breaking the goal record, and a lot of people were jumping in on that, hockey fans, people in the DC area. But everybody that is in the Northeast was all about Connecticut women's basketball, which is interesting to me. So, you got a bunch of 20 and 30-year-old dudes who are way into the Lady Huskies. So To Scott's point, and maybe just to the health of women's basketball in general, that's probably a good sign.
Agree 100%. So before we get into the men's side, the gentleman Jack does come right in here with being nice to his Blue Devils, and now I will be nice about your Blue Devils, Jack. I can't guarantee that Vic is going to be nice about your Blue Devils, because Vic and Sarah, I have two Wolfpack, NC State Wolfpack here on the show with me today, so I can't put any promises on their behavior, but I'll try to be nice about this next subject here. So the men's final is tonight. It features, of course, Florida and Houston. Florida defeated Auburn 79-73. Florida was down by 8 points at one point in time in the game, but then Walter Clayton Jr. came out and scored 34 points and just had a crazy second half, led them. And then we all know about Houston's comeback against Duke. They were down 14 with 8 minutes left. I think it was down 6, but with like 1:17 left, and they end up winning that game by 3. And what maybe some are, I've definitely seen some points out there about maybe one of the biggest choke jobs, at least in college basketball history. But so Vic, I'll let you start. I know you've been chomping at the bit to go off on Duke all day. So here you go. Here's your chance.
Frauds. Duke is frauds. Duke are frauds.
Now, Vic, I want you to hold back. Don't hold back. You just tell us exactly how you feel.
They haven't had a championship in 10 years with all them 5-star players and recruits, and they had Shusketsky, and now that's Shire at 5 stars, 5-star this. Where's them championships at? Lost in the second round twice. Come on now.
Vic's bringing it strong on Duke. Scott, you got anything you want to add on it?
I just thought that was unbelievable, that last minute and a half. I mean, especially like Houston definitely gave Duke plenty of opportunities to just take over that game at the end there too, especially when the guy got the technical foul by touching the ball. And then he's just like, it was me. And I just got to give it to the head coach of Houston. He just kept that team together, and he deserves a lot of credit. Great coach.
Been around a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sarah, you got anything to add? Jack wants you to be nice to Duke, so see what you can do here.
Don't think I can be as vicious as Vic. I'm not exactly like cute. Like I'm a Pac fan, but like I more so like hate on UNC than I do Duke. Like Duke, I'm fine with. Like,
okay,
I can't speak much on the men's side. I can't speak much on the men's side because Pac didn't do great. Women's, I can be competitive on, but like,
yeah. That's a valid point there.
That's the only thing I'm upset about still is just Pac losing, because like we are good every single year, and then we just find a way to just something happens.
Agree.
Always.
Jeff, you got anything you want to add on it?
Yeah, they cost me money.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So that's all I know about it.
So for those who don't know, I run a blind pick pool, and Jeff had Duke, didn't you?
I got Duke.
Yeah, he had Duke. Everything was looking good for him, and instead of winning $100 or $200, he only wins $20. So and he put 15 in. So really, he's only a +5. So, but hey, it's $5. You can buy yourself a Coke or something, a nice Diet Coke. Vic Zat chime in, total joke. I think he's in agreement on the Duke side of things there. So, all right. So anyone want to make a pick for tonight? I originally said that the winner of Duke Houston is going to win the Natty, so I'm sticking with that. So that of course means I've got Houston, but I can't really put any reason on it other than that.
I got Houston, but Walter Clayton could be a difference maker. Walter Clayton Jr. We'll see.
I think Florida's got it.
Now, are you just saying that because of our other neighbor influence with the Taylors?
Who?
Yeah. See, we have some. They grew up Florida Gator. They were all in the Gators, so I'm sure that we have a little bias towards Florida, so I can go along with that. So, Scott, you got a prediction for tonight?
Yeah, bracket wise, like I did horrible. However, going into the final weekend, I had all 4 of my Final Four teams still. So now nice. I have 3. So you kind of figure out which team I had going. And then and I actually had Duke beating Florida in the finals. So we're going to go – Duke's gone. We're going Florida.
Okay. I can live with
that. But I'd like to see Houston go like triple overtime thing. That would be awesome if I can even stay up.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna try to stay up. Well, at least I try to see if there's a national anthem tonight, so I can do my Jose Can You Sing. But we'll see if I can make it or not. So, Jeff, you got any prediction?
No predictions, but is Houston still Phi Slamma Jamma? Drexler still on the team?
No, but he was there. He was in attendance at least. So, and of course, we all know who took out Phi Slamma Jamma in the final. That
That's
was
right.
NC State. So
Yep.
a little symmetry
Yep,
there.
nice.
So, Jack says
Look, I
Shire was
got
out.
under my
Coach.
jersey, so NC
Yeah.
State under the jersey.
Jack says Shire is out, the coach the last 3 minutes. I probably agree with that. He definitely was. And then he has Florida winning it all, which he said that on the show yesterday, which I can't disagree with that. I mean, I think both these teams. I think it'll actually be a good game. I think it's both teams can defend well, and I love a good defensive game at times. So I think it's going to be fun. So all right, but this is the reason why I brought everyone here. It's time to drive to the net, and of course, what are we going to be talking about? It's we're going to get into the game yesterday and all the fun that was, but I actually want to kind of lead us into that because, I'll be honest, 2 weeks ago, I was starting to get a little nervous with if he's going to, because he was on this goal every half game. And at that projection, it was going to be close to the end of the year. Jeff's got tickets for the game Thursday night, and I was like, man, I don't know if he's going to be anywhere near it by then. And then Ovie does what he always does, right? He goes on one of these goal rush runs. It started Wednesday night in Carolina in a game that Carolina kind of outplayed them for a little foreshadowing for what we're going to talk about later. We're going to get into that whole Carolina Washington fun that happened later in that game, later in the show. But he gets a power play goal, like one of the other the great Ovie goals that sets him up for Friday night, where he's 2 away. Gretzky's officially in the building at that point in time, 2 from tying anyway, 3 from breaking the record. The game Friday night is just magical. He scores the goal the first 4 minutes in. The building is jumping. They show Gretzky in the stands. They give Gretzky a nice ovation. The building is just it was just so electric in there Friday night watching that game. Then of course he gets the second goal later. So now he's got it tied. And that I thought they did a really nice job there too of acknowledging that, stopping the game. Chicago, heads off to them. They stopped the play. They give him the nice ovation. Everything was going great. And then the question was, of course, is he going to score an empty net goal? And I was texting all these guys, it can't be an empty net goal. It couldn't be. And I was so happy when afterwards, when he said that, and you could tell the coach asked him if he wanted to go out there. He shook his head no. They score an empty net goal, which is Ryan Leonard's first ever in the NHL, which is equally cool. And then he has 2 amazing opportunities after they pull the goalie. They bring the goalie back in. He wrists one off the shoulder of Spencer Knight, which could have won it right there, which would have been crazy if he gets the hat trick the right way on the goalie. The building on that place would just exploded. But needless to say, that sets us up for what happened last night. And I'm texting Jeff during the game because I thought Ovie had a pretty slow first period. He only played like 4 minutes of it. And I didn't want to say anything, but I was like, he kind of looked like he was just going through some shifts because he kind of wanted to beat the record at home. The second period, though, he comes out with a great shift. And then, of course, they get the power play. And I even texted Jeff right before it happens, like, we'll see now what happens with him having a power play. Does he do his usual 2 minutes power play? Of course, it didn't even take that long. An amazing pass from Wilson across to him. He's basically in his office with a fitting one-timer goal that he always seems to score to break the record. So on this one, I want to start with Jeff, and then we'll go to Scott because I want my 2 Washington Capitol fans to give your overall opinion on everything, and we'll break this down even more with the calls of the goal and everything like that. But I want to start give you guys the floor and let you guys as Washington Capitol fans go through your emotions throughout the course of the last 3 games with him.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, I want to talk about his whole career. So if you got about 30 minutes here, yeah. But I do want to talk more about his whole career for a couple of minutes. I've been a Caps fan for 40 years, so believe it or not. And, I lived through heartache. I lived through where we were excited when we sold out the building 20 times in a season, like, half the games. And never having the star, but always having a good team, but ultimately losing to the Penguins, which would, of course, continue on after Ovie came. I had season tickets to the Caps very early in the 2000s in the Yager era, which lasted a whole season and a half. And by the end of that year, they had sold off everybody. So we were watching Mike Pettinger and just people like that on the ice, Steve Eminger, people that didn't really belong in the NHL. And I remember sitting in the arena in my season tickets, and I was probably one of about 7,000 or 8,000 people in there. And I remember thinking at the time that I would rather this team be so good that I was sold out of every game, or I couldn't afford to get into every game, than to have season tickets to this. And then, of course, the lockout came, and then that's exactly what happened. They drafted Ovechkin. The guy was spectacular right out of the gate. I think people forget that if you've only been watching him in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. He's obviously slowed down quite a bit. But when he first came into the league, he was just as spectacular as any of the young guys you see now. In many ways more spectacular because of his speed. Believe it or not, he used to have speed and power. And he was amazing. And a pretty neat stat is everybody talks about Ovie's office. Overall, only about 20% of his total goals have come from his office. Now, on the power play, it's about 40%. And in the last 8 years of his career, those numbers are even higher. But for his entirety of his career, it's about 20% because he used to score off the rush all the time. And people forget that. After he came, the Caps had 588 consecutive sellouts. They were in the playoffs for 16 of 20 seasons, including 16 of the last 18, if we're counting this year. Youth hockey has exploded. I think, Matt, you've talked about that in chat on Facebook with the Ashburn Extreme, how good they are in national tournaments. For somebody to break this record, they had to average 45 goals a year for 20 seasons.
Yep.
Scoring 45 goals a year is really hard to do once. And the really great players can do it 6 or 7 times in their career, but to average it for 20 seasons is nuts. And that includes 3 seasons that were shortened for various reasons, COVID and lockout. And then he lost an entire season to lockout. So this guy could be well on his way to 1,100 goals right now if that stuff had not happened.
Right.
Another thing that's important is that to note is that when he retires, he'll finish number 1 in hits. So he will be the all-time goal scoring leader and the all-time hit leader in the National Hockey League. Now, they just started keeping track of this 15 years ago or so, much like the sack record in football. We don't know how many sacks Deacon Jones had, but we do know how many sacks Mark Gastineau had. And if not, he'll tell you or yell at Brett Favre about it. But still, he'll, in his era, he's going to finish number 1 in hits. He's a fixture in the community. The guy always signs. He always stops to talk. Years ago during Snowmageddon, there was a piece in the news where he was out with a snowblower, snowblowing neighbors' driveways. This is the greatest hockey player of his generation, or at least one of the 2 greatest of his generation, doing that. I think the guy's a leader. You could see after he scored the goal the way his teammates talked. Well, first of all, the way they celebrated with him, but then the way they talked about him, the way Backstrom talked about him, Carlson talked about him, Oshie, Strome, and Wilson. They just revere the guy and just think highly of him, not just because of his hockey ability, his athletic prowess, but just he's a good guy. He's a good leader. And then here's the last thing that I'll say about him, just in general. Is one of the things that's always impressed me the most. The Caps have had years of disappointments, right? They had the best team in hockey for three or four times, and they never won the Stanley Cup during those 3 or 4 seasons. The year they actually won it, they weren't the best team in the league, but 3 or 4 times they were the best team in the league and did not win it. Unfortunately, all 3 of those years, 3 of the 4 years, the Penguins were the second best team in the league, and they had to play them in the second.
Right.
And so we lost to them. We lost to the Rangers in some heartbreaking fashions. He, every single time, came out and faced the media, and every time took responsibility as the captain and the leader of that team. That had to be very hard, especially when they lost again in 2016, 2017. It just felt like they were never going to do it. And he never, ever shied away from talking to the press. And so I think that's an important thing to note about him. And, I just feel privileged to have watched the guy for 20 years. I've probably seen 85% of his games, whether in person or on TV. over 20 years, and it's a joy every time. The guy's amazing.
I agree 100%. Scott, what do you want to add?
110% for me. Excuse me. Jeff mentioned his first game. It was against Columbus Blue Jackets in Columbus, and he had a great game. And in fact, his first shift ever, he slammed the defenseman against the glass and broke the glass on his first shift ever. So he broke the NHL on his first shift ever, which is awesome. And like Jeff, ever since then, he's awesome. Love him. I'll transition to this weekend. If you're a Caps fan like Jeff, and you remember before Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals, there was an inevitability that they were just going to win. Mm-hmm. I went downtown. I partied with everyone outside of the arena. The team was in Vegas, but taking the Metro in, you just felt it. Like you knew they were going to win that game. And you were going to a celebration. That's what it was. There was no doubt about it. We all knew. So going into this weekend, going into Friday's game, it's like I had that same feeling. Felt like the playoffs, but more so, you just knew he was going to get Gretzky's record. Like I knew, like you just felt he was going to tie it. And then the next day, yesterday, it was again like he's going to do it. This is when he's going to do it, and he did it, and it was unbelievable. So I just wanted to throw that out there on the feelings of what it was like. And, he deserves every praise possible. So, and then, we'll get into the top 5 players of all time later.
We will. Vic, what do you want to add?
I think his one-timers are more impressive than his early strong goals. The timing and precision of hitting a one-timer from people I've talked to is incredibly difficult, and he just does it over and over and over again. So
I don't want to brag on a certain puck slug, but I think where Ovie actually learned it from is the one and only Jeff Nail, because Jeff Nail could one time the hell out of a puck in beer league hockey. I'm just saying, I think he probably went to a few of the puck slug games back in the day, and that's probably where he saw it from. I agree though, Vic. The one timer is something that's just crazy good. So Sarah, what do you got? Anything? I know you had to work at Bojangles, so you didn't get to see it live, but
no, yeah, I was stuck at work. No, I definitely think it's crazy, like history-wise, like because you all lived through Gretzky and whoever, and like Ovechkin's I guess ours. Although I think there's like obviously like we'll talk about it later. Like I think there will be a bunch of names that will come up later that might take threat to Gretzky and Ovie and everybody up there in the ranks.
And I remember the gentleman Jack once asked, and that's why I brought up this graphic, because I thought this was a really cool graphic. So we talk about how is this record even breakable? Because of all the Gretzky records, and I'm going to say some of my Gretzky best records for our debate of the top of the GOAT later, but I think this really shows how Ovie was able to do it. Like if you look at this the stat here, it took Gretzky 143 games to get from 1 to 100. It took Ovie 167. Then the crazy numbers begin for Gretzky. It only took him 98 games to get from 100 to 200, 109 to get from 200 to 300, and then 87 games to get from 300 to 400 goals, which is just crazy that he was able to do it that fast. But for Ovie, you can see there's like towards the end of Gretzky's career, like it took him 364 games to get from 8 to 894, and a lot of that was Gretzky's back. His last 5-7 years of his career just wasn't allowing him to play the way that he wants to. Where thankfully for Ovie, he has been healthy throughout really his entire career. And so you see the consistency in his stat: 167, 130, 178, 162, 168, 190, 155, 162, 182. The reason why he was able to break it is that like he was consistently scoring 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60 goals a year. He just never had, even this year at 38, he's on 43 goals now, and he missed 4 weeks with the broken leg.
15 games.
He easily would hit 50, if he didn't miss the time this year. There's not a doubt in my mind he would get 50 this year, and he still could. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he got 50. But I just thought that was a great stat way to show when people ask how was he able to do it. That's why his longevity throughout his entire career has just been something I've never seen before, and I loved the symmetry. And this is what I want to to get into next with you guys. The symmetry of this all that took place was amazing. It started with Gretzky wearing the Gordie Howe pin. So basically, it was like Gordie Howe was there. The warm welcome that Gretzky got, because let's be honest, look, I always try to keep politics out of this show, but Gretzky's company sometimes has been a debate lately, and I was very happy to see him get a standing no in Washington and get a standing no in Long Island. That was important to me that be recognized. And then he has Gordie Howe's pin, and basically Gretzky did exactly the same way that Gordie Howe did for him, which was important. He said he was going to be there when he broke the record. He was. Gretzky's wife gave Ovie's wife a present, just like Gordie Howe's wife gave his wife a present. The symmetry of these events, and I'm going to get into some of these numbers, and it's when I get into the numbers, it's crazy. But I just thought the overall event of once he broke the record, how Gretzky was welcoming, Ovie, and it's kind of the same way. Ovie still thinks Gretzky is the greatest of all time. Gretzky still thinks Gordie Howe is the greatest of all time. Like, that symmetry between these three guys is just, it's what hockey's all about, in my view. Let's see. On this one, I'm going to start with Vic. We'll go in order here on this one. What do you think of the symmetry between these three and the ceremony in and of itself at the NHL? Because look, the NHL screws up a lot of things. This one they actually got right. I thought it was perfectly the way it was done. I can't think of any way that it would have been better.
I agree totally. I think they did really well. I think the way Gretzky talked about Ovie the whole time before, what was it, Saturday, was great. I thought Ovie was great, and I give the whole thing credit. I thought it was all great, and even Bettman. Boo, but Bettman, yeah, I give him credit too.
But the crowd didn't disappoint for that. They still announced Gary Bettman, and like NHL tradition. But and I love this. I'll give this for Bettman. He has accepted the boos, and he almost kind of like, when they don't boo him, he gets mad about it. Where every other commissioner gets pissed off that they're booing him. Bettman has turned around to love it, which I kind of give him credit for. I think that's a good sign. Like, he's like, okay, yep, here come the boos. I'm ready for it. And then he goes about the business. It's great. So
it's like I know we got some wrestling fans that watch. It's like a wrestling heel. It's like they wait for the boos now when he's like, yep, the heel. Yep.
He knows it's coming. Sarah, how about you? What do you think on all this?
I don't really have any comments now.
Okay. Well, Jeff, how about you? We'll go with Jeff next.
Yeah, I just thought it was really cool, the mutual respect that Gretzky and Ovechkin have for each other. As you said, Ovechkin still calls him the greatest player of all time and the great one. And he mentioned all the times how cool it was that the great one was in the building to watch him do it. I think he actually enjoyed sharing it with him for a couple of days. Obviously, he went out after the goalie went back in and tried and had those two great chances. He would have loved a hat trick, bring down the house. But when that didn't happen, I think he embraced like, hey, let's just share it for a while.
Yep.
And then Gretzky as well. He's still a bit of a competitor. They asked Ovie in the press conference, like, hey, now that you've done it, this was after the Chicago game, and Gretzky's like, hold on a second, he hasn't done it yet. It's still, I get to share the record for a while.
Yep, that was a good laugh. I like that one too.
And I think he was partially joking, but I think he was partially serious too. Like, that was the competitor in him. He's like, I'm not ready to give this up yet.
Yep.
And then I just thought it was also the mutual respect between the two families. Like, Janet Gretzky started crying when he scored the passing goal. Which was amazing. So, I know it happens in other sports, but I feel like it happens even more in hockey, the mutual respect. And it's such a unique sport where, you can go out there and beat the crap out of each other for 60 minutes. And 2 minutes after the game's over, you're friends again. And that, I think, is unique in sports. And so, yeah, I just thought it was great all the way around. I mean, the NHL did a fine job, but it really was the two stars, the two players that did the best job.
Agree with that one totally. Scott, what do you got?
Word on the street is that the gift that Janet Jones gave Nastia was Police Academy, a signed version of Police Academy 5. Assignment number 3.
Her big movie.
That's what she gave him.
Okay.
The greatest movie ever. But
I thought the other.
But if you take, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay, well, I think that it's unbelievable. Ovie, Gretzky, and Howe, right? You can take him. You have one center, you have a left wing, and you have a right wing. that would be take those three in their prime. They can play any time in the future together, and they would kill people. That would be sick because you can actually field a starting front three. But I just thought it was awesome. The Gretzkys are great. They always do it. They're just class act in the way that they handle it. And of course, Bettman, he's really weird because he kind of, it's like, oh, well, give it to them. He's kind of odd character, but
he is.
But I'm just glad Ovechkin got the whole thing. It's way to go.
I agree. Let me get through a couple of these comments here, and I especially want to get to two of them that are going to be. But first, Chad asked when he retires, can he coach Kent State football? I'll just say, look, no one could do any worse. I mean, our current coach has one win in the last 2 years. So Ovie could probably coach and get at least a win. I feel pretty confident. If anything else, he'll just go out and start hip checking people on his own and create some plays. So I'm going to get into some of these numbers between Gretzky, Ovie, and Howe, because they are really crazy. And while I do that, I want you guys to think about these two questions because this is actually going to be coming up here next anyway. So Jack Carr puts, do you guys think Ovie can get to 1,000? Jack Wagner puts in that he does think that he'll get to 1,000. I'll get your guys' opinion, but I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds to think about it and just listen to these crazy numbers between these three guys. Okay, Gretzky scores goal 894 in game 1487. Ovie scores goal 895 in game 1487. Gretzky breaks Gordie Howe record scoring goal 802 on March 23rd, 1994, meaning that Gretzky held the record for 31 years and 15 days. Gordie Howe had the record when he took it from Maurice Rocket Richard, and he had the record for nearly 31 years when he broke the record. It's just crazy the fact that they both have, the records were held for 31 years. Ovie and Gretzky basically score almost the same amount of goals in the same amount of games. Like I said, the symmetry with these three is it's just mind blowing crazy how that all worked out to be where these things just happen to be in line. Like it's almost like it was meant to be. So the question I guess is what 6 or 8 year old out there that's playing hockey today is going to be the one that does it 31 years from now, which is it's so cool to think about that type of stuff. So, so with that being said, the question that was asked, guys, this one, I'll go to Sarah first. Do you think Ovie can get to 1,000 goals? 105 more would be needed.
It's hard to say. I think he's definitely still trying for next season. But I would say he's probably got like 2 more seasons in him max, and then he's probably hanging at the skates. I could totally see that being something that he would strive for. I want to say yes, he will, but especially if he's had the seasons he's had this year, like he's been very healthy, consistently putting up points, I think he could definitely reach that. But Nate, it's hard to say. I'd give it a 50-50.
Okay.
Classic.
Vic, we'll go with you next because then I'll let the Caps fans have the last words on this one. So Vic, do you think he gets to 1,000?
I'll go 975.
975. I like it. It's just like you're going right out there with the number. All right. Scott, how about you first this time? On my Caps fan side.
Yeah, he can do it if he plays 3 years. I don't know if he plays 3 years though.
Agree.
I don't think he plays 3 more years.
What's he got left on the contract? Is it next year? It's
like next year, and it sounds like he'll like those Russians love to go to the KHL and play 1 season, so he'll probably go to like Moscow Dynamo in like 2 years. I can see.
Okay, Jeff, what do you got?
Yeah, if he wants to, he can. Like if he decides that's what he wants to do, there's no question he can. I mean, as long as he has that shot, he can score 25 or 30 goals a season in this league. That's how good his shot is. And then if he's moving his legs and he's doing all kinds of other stuff and he's learning to get in front of the net and tip goals in and stuff like that, he could still be a 40 goal scorer next year and the year after. The question is, does he want to? His contract is up at the end of this year. He has said that he's not playing beyond that contract. He has said he only wants to play for 2 teams in his entire career, Moscow Dynamo, the Capitals, and then back to Moscow Dynamo for a final season or two with them. So before he came to the NHL, he played with Moscow Dynamo. The only way that I see that he does it is if the Caps still have a very good team and he's still scoring 40 goals a year, and they haven't won a cup in the last 2 years, in the next 2 years, the playoffs this year and next year. If he feels they're close and he can contribute to a cup winning team, I think he might sign a 1-year contract. But I think that's the only way he comes back. And if he does, he very well could get 1,000 goals for sure.
Yeah, I'm actually in agreement with you guys. I think he can do it if he wants to, but he's always said that this contract is his last NHL contract. So if he sticks by that word, then no, he can't get to 1,000. But I don't know. I think it could be a nice little carrot of a number, and I think even Gretzky kind of threw it out there in their presser yesterday of hey, if he wants to keep playing, there's no reason why he couldn't get to 1,000. Maybe that's enough, but I think you're right. I think the Caps have to have a good team, and the good news is if you're a Caps fan, with these moves that they've made and some of these guys that they've now locked up for the next few years, the team is there for him to be productive on over the next 2 or 3 years. So I definitely think that's the case. So I brought up here for fun too. This is now the new right. So you see, Ovie's first at 895, Gretzky 894, Gordy third 801, Jaromir Jagr fourth at 766, and then Brett Hull rounds out the top 5 at 741. It's kind of crazy. I kind of forgot that Marcel Dion scored 731 goals. It's just funny when you look at this list and you're like, oh yeah, he did. And it's just fun to see that list. So I wanted to share that list. But now we're gonna do this. So there's been a lot of debate, a lot of talk over, okay, so where does this put Ovie as far as the greatest of all time? I think most of us would be in agreement that he's definitely the greatest goal scorer of all time. Whether or not, though, that means that he can do it, we'll see. Ben, we'll bring this up here real quick. Ben is asking a question for Jeff and Scott, your thoughts on Ryan Leonard. So go ahead and get that before we get into the greatest of all time.
Go, Jeff.
Scott, you can go first.
Okay.
Go
ahead, Scott.
Yeah, go, Jeff.
Me? Ryan Leonard looks like he belongs 4 games in. Totally looks like he belongs. In fact, on a good team, they put him in the top 6, and I thought, what the hell are they doing? That's where he belongs. He belongs in the top 6 already. He is TJ Oshie with a better shot. Probably better skating and just slightly bigger. And if that comes to fruition, that would be a huge get for us. Because as great as Oshie was, he scored 30 goals once. He had all the intangibles, but I think this kid has the intangibles, and I think he has the ability to become a pretty regular 30-goal scorer in the league.
I agree. Scott, what are your thoughts on Ryan Leonard?
He was really great at Boston College, and his college career was amazing. And he's got the size for the NHL. He can take the hits. He can give the hits. Like Jeff said, he's got it all. So I'm not saying the guy's going to go and be like 5-time 50-goal scorer or anything, but I do expect to get more 30-goal seasons out of him than TJ Oshie.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I Ben didn't ask. I fully agree with you guys too. So I think he's got every potential in the world to be a very good player for you guys, and I think come playoff time, he's the kind of guy that's gonna, I think, will be very helpful, especially in a possible second round matchup with a certain maybe team from Raleigh, North Carolina. But we'll get into that again later. So I gave you guys all a homework assignment, and hopefully you're all ready to go, because it's time to talk about the greatest of all time. And we're going to do this way. We're going to each give our top 5. Now, 5 through 2. I'm not going to push it too much. If you want to give a quick little comment about why you put them there, you can. But then when we get to our number 1s, that's where we're going to maybe have a little bit of a fun debate. All right. So we're going to start off with number 5 this time. Let's see, Sarah, who's your number 5?
Oh, why me?
Why not you?
So I just kind of like base it off of players in the NHL. I would love to speak about like players before me, but it's just kind of like hard to tell. Like I've seen the stats, but it's just kind of like hard. I think like I guess going off of,
you're a young fan, so this is your top 5. It can be who you've seen, however you want to judge it. It's all good. You're the youngest in the group, so.
I didn't put down anybody for my top 5 because I was like, there's so many things that were coming up, and I like did my best to not like name any biased players. But I guess for number 5, like I didn't put any other Canes players, so I'll put my Canes player here. I think Sebastian Aho.
Okay. I'll let you get away with that because it's who you've known since you've been really following hockey, so that's okay. Let's go, Vic. You're next. Who's your number 5?
I got Ron Francis,
Ron Francis.
second all time in assists.
He
Them,
is.
them apples matter.
I do agree with that. All right, Scott. Who's your number 5?
I love Ron Francis. He's my second favorite player of all time. And Ron Francis is, when you talk about gentlemen, Ron Francis, gentlemen. He's not on my top 5. Maurice the Rocket Richard, 500 goals, first 500 goal player. He was the second great star of the NHL, Jean Beliveau before him. And the Rocket just, I mean, he dominated the NHL at a time that none of us were alive. So
I can't argue that pick. Jeff, who's your number 5?
So number 5 was the toughest one for me. Real quick, I'm going to give my honorable mentions. So these people are not in the top 5. Ovie, not in the top 5. Crosby, not in the top 5.
Agree.
Hasek, not in the top 5, but
Agree.
honorable mention. Joe Sakic, not in the top 5, but honorable mention. Connor McDavid will be in the top 5, is not there yet. So for now, my number 5 is Nicholas Lidstrom.
Okay. You went with the D man from Detroit. I can't argue that pick. I like it. I agree. My Rocket Richard would be it was probably number 6 for me. But I'm a goalie, so I'm going to put a goalie in my top 5, and my number 5 is Martin Brodeur. 691 wins. That we want to talk about records that may not be beat. 691 may be one of them because teams just don't play goalies 70, 75 games anymore. Most goalies see 50, 60 games at the most. So I don't know that we're going to see anyone get to 691 because it's just going to be a crazy number for a goalie to try to get to with the way that teams use goalies today. But not only that, 3 Stanley Cups. He's got a 224 career goals against average and a 912 save percentage overall. He redefined how goaltending is, today. Most goaltenders do some type of a Martin Brodeur stance. So for me, he's the best goalie of all time. I had to have a goalie somewhere in the top 5, so that's why he's in my top 5. But I can't argue with so far any of the other names I've heard. So, all right. So let's get to number 4. This time we'll go reverse order. Jeff, you can start with your number 4.
Sure. Bobby Orr, best defenseman ever.
Okay. Scott, who's your number 4?
Bobby Orr, best defenseman ever. Played only 596 games at 874 points, and he probably has one of the greatest, if not the greatest, picture of all time with the goal.
Agree. Vic, who you got at your
Although
number
Chip probably would disagree with me because it was against St.
Well,
Louis.
it was against St. Louis, right? But I still think, that the picture still, everyone knows that the picture of him flying in the air after the goal. Vic, who's your number 4?
My top 5 was very Ford heavy. I had Bobby Orr in honorable mention like Jeff, but my number 4 is Lemieux.
Okay.
915 games played, 690 goals. I just thought that was impressive, and he was one of the ones I saw play for a little bit, so I had to go with Lemieux.
Okay. All right. Sarah, who's your number 4?
Guys, I don't have any of these players in my top 5 because I'm not in this generation.
That's okay. I want a young person's perspective. That's why I had you on here, because you're the youngin' of the group.
Okay, so we'll just I guess these are just players that I could see being I guess what Jeff said, being in the top 5 eventually. And I actually did put down McDavid, although you can also just switch that out with Draisaitl. I think both of them are very productive. I think Draisaitl is actually having a better season this year, if I'm not mistaken. But I think both of them are very, very powerful. It would be interesting to see if they're going to stick in Edmonton, because I think if they won a cup, they might have to get out of there. But that's just my thoughts.
Look at that. I like that bold.
But I think definitely, and they're pretty still young, so they still got a bunch of more time to rack up points, rack up whatever. But I could definitely see them being in the top 5 eventually and being in the conversation against, Howe and Ovie and Ovechkin trying to come for their records.
Okay. Well, we did not rehearse this, but I am with Scott and Jeff. My number 4 is also Bobby Orr. He changed how D was played. I mean, he just did. Like you wouldn't have the offensive defenseman if it wasn't for a guy Bobby Orr that started. And he only played 12 seasons. Again, he was another guy that got banged up, just had a lot of injuries. If he would have had the longevity that some of these other guys had, the numbers would have been crazy. But the number that is just off the wall crazy to me of his 12 seasons played, he was a plus 582. And for those not familiar, if a goal is not scored on a power play, you get a +1 if you're on the ice when the team scored. You get a -1 if you're on the ice if the other team scores. So that means that he was on the ice for 582 more even strength goals that Boston scored. It's just in 12 seasons. I mean, it's just a crazy number. So with that, let's get to number 3. So as you can tell, I'm kind of going in this reverse order. So Sarah, that means you were first up with your number 3.
Okay. Well, this is going to be embarrassing. That we're still going off of just players that I think could eventually be in this conversation. I have Nikita Kucherov.
Okay.
Not bad.
I don't know.
He's won 3 Stanley Cups.
He's
right?
had 3 Stanley Cups. Like, what's the record for that? Is there a record for like most?
Ooh, good question. See, Messier's got
somebody on the Canadiens.
Yeah, it's got to be a Canadian from back in the day when they won all those cups.
Like
right?
8 or 9.
Yeah, I think so.
But like, I don't think Tampa's in any position to win any more cups for a couple next few years. Like, I think they'll make the playoffs here and there, but I don't think they're gonna have a cup run for a while. But not that I would. I guess if Kucherov wanted to go for that record than any other record, then I mean whatever. But that's kind of hard to try for. But no, I mean he's produced a lot. I mean, like, he is still like in a lot of hockey talks or whatever. But like I still think he is kind of like a underdog compared to others that they always talk about, like Crosby or McDavid or Matthews or whoever. So I think he's definitely up there.
Agreed. Yeah, he's top 25 of all time scoring, I think, looking at the list. So I can't argue that one. Vic, who's your number 3?
I might get crap for this, but I got Howe at 3.
Okay. You want to defend why you got him at 3, or you want to wait to see what we say where he's at with us?
We'll wait for the next 2.
Okay. All right. Jeff, who's your number 3?
Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe.
Okay.
Hey, there we go. That works then. Works for me.
All right. Scott, who's your number 3?
Real quick, it wasn't Maurice Richard, it was Henri Richard, has 11 Stanley Cup championships.
Okay.
Maurice had 8. Okay, so there you go.
Richard's hogging them all.
Then again, they only have 4 teams or 6 teams in the league, so
wasn't he the Pocket Rocket?
Yeah, he was.
I think that was his nickname. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
So yeah. So number 3, I have Mario Lemieux. Okay. Life gets in the way. He had a lot of back issues, and then he had the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma struggle, so that took him out a lot. He didn't play nearly as many games as he should have, just like Bobby Orr. But Mario also did 1.88 points per game in his career. He almost got 2 points a game in his career. It's sick.
Yep.
That's crazy. But he could do anything. He could do anything. He was big too. Like, he couldn't fight or anything. He wasn't a big checker. But he wasn't there for that. That wasn't his game.
Agree. And Chip, what we're doing, because Chip's late to join us, so what kind of we're doing? We are giving our top 5 greatest of all times in the NHL. So Chip's other comment here, of course, he's talking about his Blues, and I was going to mention this, but then Ovie broke the record. But yeah, the St. Louis Blues are now up to 12 in a row. I did bring them up last week. They are on the all-time heaters of all-time heaters in the NHL. It's we talked about symmetry earlier. The Blues symmetry of what they're doing from the year they won the Cup is just crazy how similar those 2 years are. So that's what we were talking about. So that gets me to my number 3, and I am with a couple of the other guys. Mario Lemieux is my number 3, and it's simply because of the time that he missed. He only played 915 games because he missed time from the cancer that he had. I honestly, look, you guys all know me, or those that know me know my love for Wayne Gretzky. But if I'm looking at it realistically, if Lemieux doesn't miss the years in his prime, maybe we're talking about Lemieux having some of these records that Gretzky has, at least maybe the goal scoring record for sure. But his time was cut short due to that. He tried to come back. He had a couple of decent years after that, but still wasn't quite able to produce what he was in the golden years with Jagr. So Lemieux is my number 3, but with a huge asterisk just because of the injuries that he had. I think he could have maybe been 2 or 1 if it wasn't for that. So let's get to that. Let's see. I think it's a lot of us, for at least 3 of us anyway. I think I know what the 2 are going to be. It's just a question maybe of the order here. So let's see how this goes. So let's go, Vic. Let's go with you first. Who's your number 2?
I got Jagr at 2. Second
Jagr at 2.
all time in points and 538 even strength goals.
Okay, interesting. All right, Sarah, who's your number 2?
I put Crosby.
Okay, I think Crosby's
people
a
will
fine
have
one.
that.
Yeah, some
I
people
put
would
him at
argue.
7.
There's some people would I think would actually make an argument that I've seen on the
I have him at
boards and
6.
stuff that they would put Crosby actually at 1 right now because he played a complete game. So I think Crosby at 2 is fine. Let's see, Scott, who's your 2?
2 is Wayne Gretzky.
Okay,
I don't have to say anymore. It's Wayne Gretzky.
I know where your 1 is going to be. I know that. And Jeff, who's your number 2?
My number 2 is the best hockey player I've ever seen. I hated him. He broke our hearts many, many times. But he was the most skilled, best hockey player ever. Injuries, disease, kept him out. Back problems, Hodgkin's, as you said. But Mario Lemieux was the most spectacular player I've ever seen. And I believe he would have challenged a lot of Gretzky's records. I think some of Gretzky's early years were just so out there that, he couldn't get there. But you have to remember, Lemieux scored 199 goals, 199 points one season. So he became almost the second player. Yeah, to score 200 points. And I guess Gretzky did it, I think, 4 times. And he was spectacular. And I think he very well could be number 1 had circumstances been different.
I agree with you. And that's the only reason why I put him in 3 is because of the time he missed. Number 2 is Gordie Howe. His longevity alone is just amazing. I mean, the dude played actually an NHL game into his 50s, which is just crazy to think of. Scott mentioned earlier, if not for his time in the WHA, if he would have played all in the NHL, honestly, he probably maybe would still have be the one for Ovie to still be chasing if you count the WHA goals that he scored and before he came back to there. There's a reason why they call it Gordie Howe hat trick, right? Where you get the goal, the assist, and a fight. He is one of the more physical players of his time. And that's where I'll leave it at because I know, like I said, I want us all to defend our number 1. And I know where Scott's going to go with that number 1. So we'll save that. We'll save us 3 old timers for later. So I'm kind of curious. I want to hear, Vic, who's your number 1 of all time?
I got Gretzky for obvious reasons.
Okay. Sarah, who's your number 1?
I think this one can actually line up. I put Ovechkin because he is the number 1, or he is, actually in the league right now. And that is the one person I'm watching. That's my generation. So, I did put Ovechkin at number 1, which that's the only one that's probably lining up with anybody.
Okay.
I have him at number 8.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where we talk about like what people have seen in their time, right? So like especially like if you're in your 20s and you never got to see Wayne Gretzky or Gordie Howe or Mario Lemieux play, I can see where Ovie would be number 1 in that vote. I can't disagree with that.
That's why I put Jagr at 2 because I got to see him play a little bit, so that's why I put him at 2.
Agree. All right, so let's see. I think maybe Jeff and I are in agreement, so we get a different voice on this. Scott, who's your number? I know who your number 1 is, but I know it's Gordie Howe, and I'll let you give some of your reasons as to why you think Gordie Howe is the best of all time.
Gordie, and this, trust me, if people pick Wayne Gretzky, I'm cool with that. I mean, I get it, but I mean, Gordie Howe, he only had 4. Okay, so he played in 70 game seasons. And he had 4 40-goal seasons in 70 games. And he played, I don't know, like 15 seasons with only 70 game seasons. So there's that. Then, as you alluded to, he missed 419. Well, actually, he played 419 World Hockey Association games. in which he scored 174 goals in 508 points, which is a 1.2 points per game. That was 6 seasons. And by the way, he was in his mid to late 40s in those 6 seasons. And he was averaging 1.2 points a game. And the WHA, I mean, that Bobby Hull, Mike Gardner. I mean, there are some great players that played in the WHA.
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky. Yep, absolutely, 100%. So there's great. Mark Messier was another one. So he took 2 seasons off in like 70 and 71, and then he got the big money from the Houston Aeros. People are like, who are the Houston Aeros? But Houston had a team, the Aeros. They were in the WHA. But in the NHL, he had 767 games, as we saw. In an 82 game, if they took the average in an 82 game season, he would have had 86 points and 37 goals every season if you did that, and which would be what, 29 seasons? It's a lot of seasons. Mm-hmm. And then when they did the WHA, they did an expansion draft, if you will, bringing in 4 teams to the NHL in 1980. He was 51 years old, and he played one last season. He actually played with Bobby Hull in Hartford. But in his 51 age, he played in 80 games, and he scored 15 goals. 51 years old,
which is crazy.
Yeah, and then he produced 2 offspring, Marty and Mark. He played on the same line with them in Houston, in Hartford, in New England. And then one of his sons, Mark, is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And he's actually Mark started out as a winger in Hartford, and then he became a defenseman. So he's actually 5th all time in goals in the WHA. So that's me.
All right. And I'm with you, Scott, on this. Like anyone that has Gordie Howe won, I won't argue with you too hard. I mean, I might have fun. We might have a fun banter about it, but I get it. Same thing with that. Jeff, you want? So it sounds like Gretzky's your one. Is that?
Gretzky is my one.
By
Yes.
my math. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to give anything for that, or you want me to do that?
I pretty much know probably what you're going to say, so I'll let you go ahead and I won't steal your thunder because you're the Gretzky guy.
All right. Here we go. So this is why, and this is really honestly the number one reason why I want to go back to August 9th, 1988, because that is the date that changed hockey forever. Does anyone know what that date is?
What was the date again? I'm sorry.
August 9th, 1988.
August. Yeah, that was when we went to the Kings.
Correct. It's the trade that changed hockey forever. Wayne Gretzky, Mike Krushelnyski, and Marty McSorley go to Edmonton for Jimmy Carson, their then number 1 pick, Martin Gelinas, who ended up having a decent career for them, and 3 first-round picks and $15 million in cash. Because if you remember, the owner of the Edmonton Oilers then, Peter Picklington, was hurting for cash for some reason, and so he traded away the greatest hockey player. And I remember watching that press conference as a kid. I'm 16 years old. Gretzky has been the love of my life in Edmonton. I figured out ways to watch him as a young kid, and I was crying with Gretzky when he's sitting there getting traded away from the Edmonton Oilers. But that trade, at that time too, in the '88s, was when the LA Lakers were Showtime, and it made hockey Showtime. And first and foremost, there's no team in San Jose. There would have been no team in Arizona, even though granted they're now in Utah, but even I would say there probably is no team in Utah. There's no team in Dallas. There's no team in Florida. There's no team in Tampa. There's no team in Nashville if Gretzky doesn't go to LA and change how hockey was looked throughout the southern and western parts of the United States. So that's really honestly why I really take the records and what he did in the game. It's what he's done outside the game of why I think Gretzky is great. And Gordie Howe was an amazing ambassador for hockey, but Gretzky throughout his entire even when he has stopped playing, he's such an ambassador for the sport. And we talk about the growth of sport, and anyone that knows me knows, like, that's what I care about more than anything is the growth of the sport. And I think just that alone, and Gretzky gets a lot of beef, and I hear it all the time about his physical, he was not a physical player, but that doesn't mean that he didn't know how to play defense, because he was a very smart player. Gretzky leads the all-time leader in shorthanded goals. He scored, it was 74 of them that he scored shorthanded. So he played on the penalty kill, and mostly, he knew where to be. And the 2 things I love, and even though Ovie is not in my top 5 yet, I think, depending where he ends up in, maybe he could get to 5. I could maybe to put him up ahead of Brodeur. But 2 players always had this ability that I've never seen before of going to where the puck is going to be. and it's Ovie and Gretzky. I've never seen two players do it better than those two, of being where the puck is going to be, not necessarily where the puck was. They were amazing at it. Gretzky could do it better than anyone, and he could, the stats, then, if you want to get into the stats, 215 is, of course, the points single season. He's the only player to score more than 200 points. We talked about Lemieux earlier at 199. He was the next closest. Gretzky did it 4 times. He did something that no other player has done 4 times in scoring 200 points in the season. He owns 8 of the top 10 points in a single season. If you go even to top 20, he has 10 of them. He, of course, still has the most goals in a single season at 92. He also has second place at 87. He's the fastest to 50 goals in 39. If Gretzky didn't score a single goal, he would be first all time in points with 1963 assists. So he still would beat Yager even if he doesn't score a goal, which to me is just crazy that's the case. But unfortunately, at the end of the year, he was not able to do what Gordie Howe and some of these other, and even Ovechkin, because the back injuries they took him out. And with that being said, I don't think he couldn't do in his later years. And then granted, he still played till he's 38, but he just wasn't the same the last 4 or 5 years. The back and the constant people being on him, because it just wasn't what he was able to do. Change things. But that's obviously my number one. So Chip has in here Simply the Great One. We talked about the trades and the 200-point seasons, which are all amazing. I agree with. So there's our top 5. Does any comments anyone has from what they heard or see that they want to add to the top 5 before we move on? Because I know we're already at hour 7, so I kept you guys longer than I said we would. But there's some other stuff I want to get to. But this was good stuff here.
Real quick, you to mention Peter Pocklington in the trade. Well, you know how Edmonton got him. From
Indy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they got him from the Indiana Racers in the WHA through a backgammon game.
Right.
Because Indianapolis was faltering. They needed money. So Peter Pocklington said, well, if I win the backgammon game, you trade him to me and I'll give you $50,000. And if I lose, you trade him to Winnipeg and they'll give you whatever money. So, and that's how that worked out.
Yeah, and who knows, would have been the same if he ended up being a Winnipeg Jet or not, right? That's the $1 million question.
Crazy.
So, all right. Anyone got anything else they want to add on our GOAT discussion? This was good stuff, and that's why I'm glad I had you guys on here. Jack puts the Edmonton Eskimos and the Edmonton Oilers were dominating. Yeah, that's true. The Edmonton Eskimos did dominate the CFL there for a while. Not as much. Yeah, Warren Moon, exactly. Before his days in the before the then Houston Oilers, right? So, all right. So this is another fun. This is my down the road segment, and this is one I think is going to be fun for us. So I talked briefly about the game that happened Wednesday night in Carolina, which look, Washington's coming off a second at back-to-back. Carolina was kind of, I think, chomping at the bit. They got to Washington early. I think it was a combination of Washington's worst first period I've ever seen all year, and maybe Carolina's best first period. And of course, since this game, Carolina's looked like absolute dog crap the last 2. But these two meet again on Thursday, which is Washington's next game. Carolina's got one on Tuesday with Buffalo. And Jeff and I have been kind of talking about this. If Gretzky doesn't break the record, and Ben asked this question in the chat because there's 120 penalty minutes at the end of the third period of this game. There's a questionable takedown by Jalen Chatfield in a fight with Connor McMichael, right? It was McMichael he's in the fight with, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And before that, Wilson doing what Wilson does. And look, Tom Wilson is a guy that I love him on my team. I hate him at being a Canes fan because of the way he plays.
30-goal scorer, Tom Wilson.
I know, and that's what I said. I love him as a player. As a player, I love Wilson. I'd love him to be on the Carolina Hurricanes in a heartbeat. Like I would take him on my team in a heartbeat. But on the other side of it, like he does, and I still think some of what he did in that game was honestly trying to get his team going to say, look, guys, we're 10 days away from the playoffs. We may see Carolina again. Like we got to get our shit going. So I still think some of it too was also for his own team. But so now the question is, these two teams meet again on Thursday. They don't have to worry about all the dignitaries in the building, because I honestly think if Gretzky was in the building, if Bettman was in the building and he had to break the record, I don't think anything was going to happen between these two teams. Right. I think there'd be some physical play. You might still get some penalties, but I don't think you would see a line brawl to start the game. Now, I'm not so sure. So let's go on this one with Scott first. Scott, do you think we're going to see anything on Thursday night when these two teams meet again?
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to see something. And we really know if it's going to start out tough if Dylan McElrath starts the game. Okay. Yeah, you guys may not even know who Dylan McElrath is, but he just wants to fight people. That's all he wants to do. And I think we'll see a lot of him. Or maybe not. Maybe he gets kicked out of the game. Whatever. But if he starts, it's a show.
I agree. Jeff, what do you think? What do you think we're going to see? Because I have my opinions on it.
And I actually need to go after this because I am, speaking of Tom Wilson, I'm going to Tom Wilson's gym, and I've got an appointment at 7, so I got to get moving to get there. I'm a little conflicted. Here's what I think, though. I think both teams, like the Caps, have not been playing well, and Carolina's last 2 games were god awful. So both teams need to get right for the playoffs. And so, are they going to think, I'm going to send a message to somebody I might meet later in the playoffs, or are they going to think we need to get to our game? And so I honestly think it's going to start out with both teams trying to get to whatever game that they ultimately want to play in the playoffs. And for the Caps, it is physical. It is heavy forechecking. It is using their big bodies. And for the Canes, it's obviously puck possession and funneling pucks to the front of the net and all the things that have been hallmarks of Rod's teams over the year. Connor McMichael was not hurt, so I don't think actually Chatfield is in danger at this point anymore. I really think it's a really big test for both teams to see if they can pull everything together in time to make a run. So I do not think, if the game gets out of hand, something sparks it. Obviously, it could be a powder keg all over again very quickly with these two teams. But I think the plan going in is to not have it be that.
Okay. Sarah, how about you? What do you got?
Who do I got? Or just like...
No, do you think what type of game do you think we're going to see Thursday? Do you think we're going to see a slugfest, or as I like to call, a shit show? Or is this going to be a real hockey game?
I think it'll be pretty real. Because you're talking second round, like at least with Washington, like I know they're definitely trying to play for a cup. It's hard. Carolina, like don't get me wrong, like they're always cup favorites, but we can never get past either the second round or the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
So I think if we can. Because, Washington and Winnipeg have been at it for the President's Trophy for, the last part of the season. Like, they've been back and forth. I think, Winnipeg's in the lead right now? They got only 1 point ahead?
Correct. They are ahead of Washington right now. I think it might be up to 3 points now.
I think if we can obviously beat the best team on the East, that it shows a good sign towards beating who's ever on the West. But I think we still have. I think it'll definitely be like a 6-7 game series. It's not going to be unless Carolina does keep playing like they have been, where they're just choking on whatever. I think definitely it'll still be like a 6-7 game series because both team is playing for something. Carolina's trying to make a point that this might be their year, and Washington's also they're all trying to make the point, but we're all playing for something different here. I think Carolina can start being taken serious if we can beat Washington.
Agree. And just real quick, backpedal a little bit. Chip asked if we came in at 3, if anyone put a goalie in, and that answer is yes. Chip, I had Martin Brodeur number 5. I was the only one, of course, to put a goalie into my top 5. But yes, I had Marty Brodeur number 5 on my list. Chip puts in here the Blues will hopefully help Carolina with Winnipeg tonight. Yeah, the Canes aren't really close to 1 or 2 on anyone. As far as the 1 overall in the league, they basically have to win out. Washington would have to lose out, and that's not going to happen. So they're set at 2 against New Jersey in the first round. It looks like right now, I think it's pretty much going to be Washington against Montreal in the first round, but we'll save NHL playoff matchups for later. So Vic, what do you think? Do you think we see anything Thursday night?
If Washington wants some penalties, go ahead and take some penalties. Because the Canes power play is getting better recently. So Hey, that works for me. But
Yeah.
I don't think so. Honestly, I think what happened, and what Rod said today might make Washington angry, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there, Rod. Well, and I don't really know that it's more throwing fire on the Caps. I think it was more the media
The
attention on the
media, yeah.
whole, on the throwdown, that it was basically at the end of the fight and not really, that stuff like that's happened before. And look, I don't think Chatty meant anything about it. And I remember watching that happen live. And I was like, oh my God, that was awesome. And then when you see it on the slow motion replay, you're like, holy shit, how did he not hit his head on the ice? And how dangerous could that have been? And how much worse could that have been if McMichael's head hits the ice when he doesn't have his helmet on? It could have been, we could be having a totally different discussion at that point in time too. And I kind of agree with Scott. I think it'll be interesting because since Carolina's the road team, they've got to submit their lineup first. So I think we'll know a lot by who is taking the opening faceoff. If it's Carolina's fourth line with some of their quote unquote more guys that might be willing to fight, and then you throw Chatfield out there and the starting lineup, maybe we see something. I think if they go with like Aho's line to start, I think that's clearly a sign that Rod's saying, look, I just want to play a hockey game, and I don't think Washington would then do anything silly there either. Scott, what do you think?
If plays, Ovie is going to be taken out.
I think you're right. I think you're more right. If it doesn't happen in the beginning, something will come in at some point.
Yep.
And then they'll do it, and then they'll get back to what they do. They'll get back to hockey.
And Jeff had a good point too. I think it could be a powder keg game in the sense of it might start off fine, and then if one team starts to dominate, you could see it happen up again, which will be interesting to see how that all goes. But also at the same time, these two teams, it's weird. It's like they got something to play for because they could meet in the second round, but at the same time, this game really doesn't mean that much to either team. I don't think the 2 points really matter that much to either team. So it will be interesting to see, other than the point that Jeff made, both teams need to get right for the playoffs. And I think both teams right now are kind of struggling to get back to their game for sure. All right, let's wrap this thing up here. We're going here pretty good here. Men's Frozen Four starts also on Thursday night. We have Western Michigan taking on Denver at 5:00 on ESPN2. Boston U takes on Penn State at 8:30. I'm looking forward to actually these two games. It's going to be hard because I want to try to figure out how to flip back and forth between three hockey games at the same time, because you got two teams. Western Michigan, never been in it before. They're taking on Denver, the reigning champs, and you got the perennial Boston U taking on Penn State in their first time in the Final Four. Scott, you got anything on the Frozen Four?
Yeah, I blew this when I said I was going to mention UConn in two different segments. I meant to mention UConn before because the best player in the game the other day, yesterday, where Ovechkin got his goal, was Mark Gatcomb, who had 2 goals for the Islanders. He's a UConn graduate, so he went to UConn. Just to throw that one out there. And now for the second part is Penn State played an unbelievably great hockey game against UConn to get to the Final Four.
Agreed.
And that game went to overtime. It's just such a great game. So there's the other UConn one. But I would expect BU, like you said, they're always great. I would expect them to take it home.
Agree. Vic, what do you got? Anything on the Frozen Four?
Go underdogs, I guess is all I got.
All right, so you're going, which is weird. Western Michigan's actually the 1 seed. They're seated higher than Denver, but I think most people are favoring Denver because they're the reigning champs. Sarah, you got anything on the Frozen Four?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. So my honest, if I look at it, I think it's going to be Western. I think we could see the two. I think we could see the two teams that haven't won it. I could see Western Michigan easily beating Denver. I think they got the better overall team, but Denver's got a really good goalie, and I think that goalies this time of year can steal games, and I think could also happen for Boston U. Denver and Boston U have gotten here by their goaltender play, and I think though we're going to see a couple of amazing games, but I don't know, something about Penn State, and that's what Jack here has. Go PSU. This team has kind of been the sneaky pick since this tournament began. They've been playing really well. They won the Big Ten, beating the Michigan States and the Ohio States to get there in their tournament, and they're riding that wave. And I don't know, something about the Penn State team. I think they might be the one that does it this year. So we'll see how that goes. The championship is Saturday at 7:30 next week, so that's something else to look forward to. It's also Masters Week coming up this week. Now, I'll be honest, I've not caught anything that much on the golf scene just yet, but the Masters is always a fun week to see the old players get to come back and play, which is always fun to see. Scott, you got anything on the Masters? I think you're probably more the golf guy in the group.
Yeah, so Rory McIlroy, he's never won it before. The Masters never won, but he's already won 2 tournaments this year already, and he looked good. He at the Players, he wasn't great, but he still won, and so he won going out in that. So if he has a good first round, I'm picking Rory to take the whole thing.
Okay, I agree with that. Vic, Sarah, you got anything on Masters talk?
Rory, Scotty, couple guys. Scotty's, always good in majors, so it'll be fun times. I enjoy watching the Masters.
Does Tiger Woods still even play?
No, he
He's
was, but I think he tore his Achilles, didn't he?
He tore his Achilles.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
dang.
Tiger might actually be done.
Weeks ago.
Yeah, he might be done, sadly, which is a shame for talk about a career that injuries just never could get right from.
Is he like the Ovie of golf? Like what is...
I think you probably could. I mean, you could call him the Wayne Gretzky in the sense. I think most people think that Tiger Woods. Well, maybe Jack. I mean, that's probably where you get the Tiger Jack debate as far as 1, 2.
Because they're always going to be tied now.
Yep. Yeah.
With most majors.
Yeah, I don't see Tiger winning another major unless he somehow gets healthy and something really goes right later on. Chip, if you are still on, Ben wants to know if you have a top 5 as far as for the GOATs of hockey. So if you are still here and there, put in your comments if you're listening, Chip, of your top 5, because that's inquiring minds want to know your top 5. All right, so that's the Masters talk. We've talked Frozen 4. Next week on the show here, I'm going to have another new co-host. His name is Dylan Ill. I work with him in my All-State days. I'm bringing him in because I'll be honest, for those that know me, I'm not the most throughout the NBA, but this guy lives and breathes the NBA. So if I want to have some NBA playoff talk, because it's the last week of the regular season for the NBA too, I'm bringing him in to guide me through some basketball talk. Our NFL draft show is going to be in 2 weeks. I'm looking for people to do their team. I want to do a mock first round draft. I'm going to put some stuff out in the chats on that to get that kind of rocking and rolling. I haven't decided when we're going to break down the NHL playoffs, but when I do break down the NHL playoffs, if you guys want to come in for that, you guys are welcome. I'm either going to do it next show or I'm going to do it with the NFL draft show. I just got to figure out the timing because I don't want to run too late if we can avoid it. So, but anyway, we're getting to the end here. We're here at the exit ramp. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
Thanks, Matty.
Any comments on anything else anyone wants or to say? Now is your time. If you have any big sports news that you want to break or anything at all.
San Dimas High School football rules.
What was that one, Scott?
San Dimas High School football rules.
Okay, there you go. I'm assuming that's a team up in your neck of the woods. So. No.
It's from our Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan, the Wild Stallions.
Okay, I'll go with you on that. Vic, you got anything you want to throw in here?
I'm just waiting on the Keishan.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see here how long that takes. You know, these getting these guys out of Russia is great. And Sarah, you got anything?
I was looking at the NHL standings. I think something important to mention. Florida currently sits at number 3 with 92 points, but Ottawa's at 90 right now.
Yeah, right. Ottawa's. Do you think St. Louis or do you think Florida? Man, what if Florida ends up being in the wild card and they have to play Toronto in the first round?
That's going to be a crazy first round because those are like 2 top teams right there, and that's
I know. That would, yeah, Florida's fallen off the injury without having Kachuk, and they're just now getting Marchand in there. They're still without Ekblad until the second game of the playoffs. But I'm not worried about Florida. I think they'll be there. In the end, I think that that's a team that's just totally on cruise control right now too. Whether or not they can right the ship or not, we'll see. But yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even
Just
realize
remember
that Ottawa
2 years ago, Florida, they got into the playoffs with the 8th seed, the final day of the season, and then they went up to the finals. So
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
No,
Yep,
I
that's
think
true.
basically the entire the teams in the playoffs are certified, but I think the Atlantic is the only one that's moving around, right? That has the chance to move around.
Yep. Yeah, you got Tampa Bay and Florida 2 points apart. You got Ottawa 90. Montreal's pretty much locked into that last wild card at 85. The West is pretty much set with this run that St. Louis has gone on. I mean, in theory, they could be caught by Calgary because Calgary's got 2 games in hand on them. Where if they win both of those games in hand, they get up to 89 points. But Minnesota's now last in that at 91. So yeah, I think you're right. I think our 16 teams are set. We just who ends up playing where might still have a little bit to figure out. Chip did put in his top 5. I think this goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's got Gretzky, Lemieux, Howe, Orr, and Yager. And I can't argue with that placement. I did think really hard about putting Yager in my top 5 too, but I had to have a goalie in my top 5. I'm a goalie, so that's what I got to do. All right, guys. Well, I thank you all for being here. This was fun. I'm glad that we had you guys on here. One more comment. Still 4 points back if Calgary wins both. Agree. Yeah, I think your Blues are in, Chip. I think it's going to be really hard for anyone to catch them. It could be Minnesota that maybe somehow falls out of this thing, but I don't think Calgary's going to win those games in hand anyway. So Chip puts in here too. Blues need to win 2 more to seal it. Jack Carr, of course, throws in his Go Celtics because he loves his Boston Bruins, or his Boston Bruins, his Boston Celtics. But guys, thank you guys so much for coming on. This was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. We ran a little bit later, but what I end my shows with, hug your loved ones, tell them that you love them, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. But if we all are here, there's always all of these great shows on the Sideline Junkies. You got my show, you got Gentleman Jack's show, The Passenger Seat, on Wednesday nights. Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays feature usually Ben and Jack and Midnight Rider and all of them, and KG and the Boss Man BJ on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and Sundays, and of course Saturday is the WrestleManiac show as well. So it's been good stuff. Let's see here. Chip throws in here real quick. Good to see you, Sarah. Been a long time. Can't believe all grown up. Yeah, but way back in the days when the little ones. So Scooter, Vic, Matty, see you boys. So Chip, thanks for joining in.
Chip.
Always love the comments, guys. This was a great show. I thank you guys so much for being here with me. And that's it for now. So we will see you guys next week.